Thank you, Jackie.
So let's see here, the retail sector still dominating ad spend, particularly Unilever at 644 million. Yeah. It will be interesting to see how that's split amongst the brands. What do you think?
I think that would give us a real good idea of how they spend within the brands. But as Gordon was saying earlier, they've had a 2% change in ad spend with counteracting media inflation. They're actually really going backwards more than forward, really.
Right, right.
You know? That's absolutely true. We you know, obviously Unilever will have significant discounts, but setting those aside, if you look at a 2.7% increase in ad spend, it doesn't even come close to managing media inflation, which I would imagine on their range of media probably looking at probably 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
So challenging.
I think the guys that will really go up next year would probably be NTN, even though they're like the third largest.
Because of the 2010.
2010, they should be putting a lot of money behind that.
Of course.
And I suppose some of the other brands like Vodacom, their competitors trying to counteract that.
Absolutely. And Coca-Cola, I think we're going to see a significant increase in Coca-Cola as being a partner. So that'll be a different picture altogether, I think, next year, and particularly, I think, for the motoring industry.
Yep.
To see what ad spend is going to look like post-recession.
I think also, I mean, we're looking at 2008 figures now, so when we're talking next year, I suppose we're talking about 2009 figures. With the recession,
that's it.
I mean, some of that, there'll be a lot of contraction at the end of the day.
Who's spending where and who's not spending, it'll be very interesting to see.
What concerns me a little, if looking at the list, was number 5 in terms of national government.
That's it, 34%.
Almost 34%, which is fairly significant, really, given that one would have thought they would have used PR.
For elections, you're referring to that's right.
The election investment wasn't actually that significant. So it's other campaigning by the various provinces.
It's okay, they kept the SABC going a little bit. I mean,
well, thank you. You know, 800 million rand loss. It's, you know, it's a kind of help that I'm sure SABC could do without.
Yeah.
But yet, then number 35 on our list, SABC, in terms of ad spend. Interesting.
There we go.
But I think that's also probably about self-promotion, as we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to see how much they've actually advertised off their self-promotional kind of advertising. But I think also we're talking about the recession. Interbrand, that Interbrand survey that they did. I mean, financial services, their brands have really deteriorated. Luxury goods have deteriorated, cars have deteriorated at the end of the day. So it will be interesting now that the economy has shown a few signs of these green shoots, what will happen in terms of that kind of advertising.
But don't you think that with financial advertising, the primary purpose of the advertising during these tough recessionary times is moreover to maintain shareholder value and the shares themselves, the value of those shares, the trading situation, rather than trying to convince people who don't have money to put money in a bank?
Yeah, I think that's right. As well as not only not putting money in the bank, but also they're not really lending. No, it's an issue. But I think during recessionary times, it's shown that there are more products getting developed at the end of the day. So there could be some elements of new products kind of coming out in the marketplace. So we'll see what happens there going forward. True.
I see SAB Miller, which it's interesting, down by 10.4%. Yeah. Do you think that's got anything to do with the launch of Grolsch at this time? Launch of new products?
No, I don't think so. Bear in mind that this was 2008. If we look at what SAB Miller have been doing during the course of this year, maybe with their new agencies, I'm not sure what influence that would play on it, but certainly there's been a significant increase in certainly television advertising in the last few months. So I wouldn't take their 10% decrease as being very significant.
What's interesting though is they've just spent, or they're busy spending 50 million on their new campaign to drive awareness about drinking and driving, etc. So that'll make a huge impact.
Absolutely, and I think also is alcoholic beverage advertising going to be banned or not? So if it is going to be banned, should they not make hay while the sun shines? But also again from the social responsibility perspective, I think it's a good thing that they're really spending that money, because there is an issue, let's be honest.
But don't you think it's a bit of a catch-22? Because on the one side you want people to buy as much of their products as possible, on the other side they're saying to you, well, don't drink. I guess it's drink responsibly. So how do you balance that? What is your view on that, Gordon?
Well, I think the people who are looking at putting legislation in place, primarily the government, I think are being quite hypocritical because of syntax. There's a significant contribution towards the government coffers on this. No one wants the public to drink irresponsibly. I don't believe any of the manufacturers want that.
Sure.
It's about treating things respectfully and everything in moderation. So it's an interesting point.
SABC at the SA Brewery, should I say, at the end of the day, needs to be a proper, responsible company. Yeah,
and I think that's what came through when we interviewed them last week. And it's about being proactive rather than being reactive.
There was one advertiser which I found quite interesting, was number 9, KFC.
Yes.
Up 39.8%. I was looking for its natural competitor in the form of Big Mac, McDonald's.
Right.
Not there.
Not there.
Didn't see them. Now, they may well be holding back, or have decided to have held back during this period for the end of 2009 going into 2010. They are a sponsor. So can we expect some activity? We saw earlier in the show what MTN are doing. What's happening on McDonald's?
Right.
Good question.
It's a very good question.
Yeah, correct.
Someone else that's just gone through a campaign is Standard Bank. So moving forward campaign. So you might see a significant increase there.
There's no doubt that with the change in their positioning, they would have wanted to slow down on their investment on their old positioning line, save their money, regroup, do their research, launch moving forward, and put all their resource behind it. It'll be interesting to see how long they keep that payoff line for. It really will be. Yeah, it's going to be challenging out there. One of the brands that's come down quite dramatically was Telkom, down almost 26%.
That's it.
Neotel in 2008, obviously hadn't really established itself in the marketplace, but it's strange for Telkom to pull back before the advent of a real competitor.
That's right.
I would have expected them to have been fortifying their position in the heart and minds of the South African public, and they pulled back.
Yeah. I suppose the huge increase of Hallmark of nearly 100%.
Yeah.
Is that because that it happened like closer to the end of the year, where people are now looking at cheaper products, more cost-effective products to actually purchase in their home? Who really knows at the end of the day? But I think it would also be interesting to kind of see the top advertisers and the research that they've done in terms of the top brands. How does that kind of correlate, if it does?
Right.
You know,
well, Coca-Cola is certainly the top brand. It came through very clearly in the survey, and their position is number 8 in terms of investment. So having established their position, they can maintain it economically without having to overinvest.
We have to wrap up. Final thoughts, Oresti?
Yeah, I think next year will definitely be a very different picture. How it'll change, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Gordon?
Yeah, I would endorse that. 2009 is going to be certainly a tough year. Major shift, I believe, between brand building advertising and more retail activation, get the value out of the equity in the brands. Ad spend, I think it'll be down on 2008. I think it's fairly safe to say that.
Let's see.